This is Derek. Derek is a xenomorph, or rather he's an egg that carries inside him an entity which will give birth to a xenomorph. Now, you see, Derek has fallen into the hands of a corporation who have brought him to a secret laboratory on the mining colony of LV-289. But first, they need a volunteer. Ah, here we go. This is Steve, one of the miners at the colony who has come to the lab under the false illusion they will be giving him free cake. Instead, Derek opens up to release Luke, a facehugger who latches onto Bob's face and plants an embryo inside him. Once the work is done, Steve falls off, his reason for living complete. Not long after, Luke begins to feel unwell, and out from his chest bursts our protagonist. Meet Barry, the Xenomorph. In a strange turn of fate, the security system malfunctions, causing the doors and vents to open up. Whether this was a fatal error, or a vindictive move from a third party, we will have to see. Welcome to the life of a Xenomorph. There is panic in the ore refinement factory. The company has ordered the evacuation of this part of the facility due to a chemical leak. Little do the workers know that the company is lying to them. Instead, it is Barry who has finally made his way out of the vent system into this part of the factory. However, the facility management have activated their defense bots, and two of them stand in the way of Barry and freedom. Dropping into the room, Barry quickly slithers to the nearest conveyor platform, being careful to stay out of sight of the security bots. Gaining height, he jumps from belt to belt before landing onto the ore intake platform and finding a crevice he can hide in until he grows to maturity. Barry has finally grown to maturity and became a full-fledged xenomorph. Now that Barry is a full xenomorph, he can begin to finally hunt the local colonists and fight back against their defences. Following the conveyor line, he pops up in one of several loading bays where ore is carried up from the underground tunnels. Inside is a large group of colonists. Easy pickings. It takes Barry less than a minute to claw and bite his way through them. Oh, but what is this? Barry appears to have left one of the colonists alive. Now, why would he do that? Before Barry can do anything for this final survivor, however, a security bot finally catches up to Barry. This time though, he can fight for himself, and after a tough battle, he manages to destroy his enemy. With the room now cleared, Barry grabs the survivor and throws him down the mine shaft before going down himself. Perhaps now it is beginning to become clear what Barry is planning. Eventually, Barry finds a place that will perfectly fit for his plans, and begins vomiting a black substance that he uses to trap the colonist in place. The drone subclass of Xenomorph are able to excrete this substance and use it to reinforce their nests. It would appear that we are extremely lucky as we get to see a rare part of the Xenomorph life cycle. If a Xenomorph is cut off from its hive, there is a chance they will undergo a metamorphosis and turn itself into a queen, which is exactly what Barry does. How lucky we are to see this. With this newfound position, Barry finds himself capable of laying eggs, and suddenly, it all becomes clear why Barry captured a colonist. The hive now has truly grown from one xenomorph to two. Just like its mother before it, the new xenomorph quickly grows into a drone. This new drone has many responsibilities to support his queen. The first of these new duties is to expand the hive by vomiting out this black substance that spreads Queen Barry's influence and allows for more humans to be captured. The drone's second responsibility is arguably just as important. It goes up to the surface and hunts for new hosts that can be brought back and used to create future members of the hive, both human and animal. Soon the hive has several new members, including those of a new subspecies of the xenomorph, nicknamed the Runner. From here, it won't take long for the hive to grow exponentially quicker. But this raises the question, will the humans find a way to fight back? As their numbers grow, so does the hive's boldness, with hunting parties going closer and closer to the mining colony every single day. The executives in charge of the colony are increasingly becoming more concerned. The amount of workers they are losing mean that they will certainly not meet their quota for this month. They had already sent a request for help from the company after the containment breach. However, they are yet to hear back. The workers themselves are beginning to become restless, as rumours that the disappearances around the colony are not actually the fault of accidents as the company claim, but rather of monsters. Realising that this position is untenable and that their own lives are at risk, the executives in the colony make a drastic decision. They send out a distress message, hoping that the government will send help. But will they arrive in time? The hive now numbers over 50 xenomorphs, but trouble is afoot. The humans have in their wisdom finally stopped sending out conveyors outside of the main colony and instead locked themselves inside, placing security bots on the entrances. How very rude. This decision has forced Barry to move the Hive onto an offensive footing by sending a group of Xenomorphs to attack one of the mine entrances. This assault takes the humans by surprise. The executives did not realise that the Xenomorphs could be directed in any way, and assumed that they were simply primitive beasts. There was also the fact that the group was made up of a new breed of Xenomorph, the Warrior. These Xenomorphs are made for the sole purpose of killing any threats that may target the Hive. It didn't take long for these new warriors to take out the bots guard in the entrance, allowing the Xenomorphs free reign of the facility. It's been 2 days since the Xenomorphs got full access to the facility, and chaos reigns. Xenomorphs are on almost every level with nothing capable of stopping them. Luckily for the humans though, help has finally arrived. A single strike force of Marines passing through the system has picked up the colony's distress signal and deployed to the area. Each of these 5-man squads are made up of 7 Marines, and each have their own objective. One squad is to secure one of the habitation facilities to form a base of operations and a place to secure survivors. Another squad are to take control of the food production plant, while a third shores up the main reactor for the facility. The remaining 2 squads are to go through the facility together, trying to locate and rescue as many survivors as possible. Barry pulls back a large portion of his forces into the tunnels to protect the nest. The Marines have valiantly fought back the Xenomorphs, but things are about to change. Barry's runner scouts have discovered a new way into the facility that will allow them to strike the defenders where they least expect it. First though, Barry sends a group of Xenomorphs to attack the reactor facility. Now, Barry is fully aware that his forces are not yet enough to overrun this part of the facility. However, this forms the perfect distraction. You see, the real assault will be conducted from the Hive's new breed of Xenomorph, the Noctomorph. These Xenomorphs' tails are instead designed to be more better suited to underwater activity, making them perfect to enter the facility through the water transferent pipes, allowing them to attack the food production plant directly. How will the Marines react to this surprise attack? With the Xenomorphs having destroyed the food production plant, the 3 surviving members of the team assigned to defend it link up with the habitation block. With only 1 week of food left, small teams begin to go out and try and scavenge whatever food they can. Realising they need to take drastic measures, 2 of the Marine teams make their way down into the tunnel to try and bring the fight to the Queen. The Marines eventually find their way to the main nest, with only 8 of them remaining. However, to their surprise, there is no sign of Queen Barry. What the Marines do not know, however, is that Barry's scouts have gone deeper and deeper into the tunnels, and have recently found something that not even the company knew existed. These ruins would make the perfect place for Barry to create a new egg chamber. The second that Barry entered the ruins, however, ancient devices sent out a signal across the stars. One that would be answered by the ancestors of those who made the ruins. Meet Bob. Bob is a Yautja, also known as a predator. The Yautja are an old species of honourable hunters obsessed with collecting the skulls of and fighting the toughest foes. It is no wonder then that the Yautja have a long and storied history of the Xenomorphs. Bob has made his way planet-side on LV-289 because an old Yautja ruin has sent out an automated distress signal alerting the species to the presence of a Xenomorph queen in this ancient site. Bob is horrified to see that the humans have built their colony right above the entrances to the old ritual grounds, so to get entry, Bob will have to go through the facility. At the same time as this, a single ship lands not far from the facility. It belongs to the company. They have sent a single fixer alongside a small task force of bots to assess the damage on LV-289 and deal with it as they see fit. As Bob comes towards the entrance to the facility, he finally comes face to face with the real enemy, the Xenomorphs. Here we see how the Yautja hunt. Their preference is to use their cloaking technology to get close to their targets before taking them out with a shoulder-mounted cannon and wrist bracers. Clearing these Xenomorph warriors and drones is simple work for Bob. Once these chaff are dealt with, he makes his way into the facility. From the moment he enters, it is clear that the Xenomorphs are running rampant throughout, and if there are any humans left, they will be hiding. The Yautja have been known to hunt humans for sport, however, in Bob's experience, their effectiveness as prey can vary greatly from human to human. On the other side of the colony, the company representative known as the Fixer strolls into the facility. Barry has just learned the presence of a Yautja, and he is very worried. The Hive has finally grown strong enough to begin attacking the few remaining holdouts, and a new enemy is the last thing they need. It is time for Queen Barry to bring forth the newest of his breeds of Xenomorph. The Crusher is the offensive powerhouse of a Hive, capable of charging through groups of enemies with its tougher skin, meaning far more firepower is needed to take it down, while the Spitter, as its name suggests, spits out small blobs of acid at their enemies. The company Fixer arrives in the reactor control room and begins setting up his base of operations. He has one simple objective: to evaluate the situation and determine if the retrieval of live specimens is possible. If not, he's to recover what samples he can and leave the facility until more strike teams can arrive. Barry's hive are fighting their way through the facility at an impressive rate. These reinforcements brought by the company in an attempt to get the hive under control are doing little to slow down the Xenomorph's advance. The Xenomorphs are not just rampaging through the facility at random though, they are cutting a path directly towards the reactor room. For that is the nature of the Xenomorph, to destroy any living life form, focusing on those who pose a threat first. At the same time as this assault grows close, the Fixer is confronted by the Marines in the reactor control room. Once more, they demand that they be allowed to take some of his bots to try and evacuate the remaining civilians from the habitation blocks. The Fixer once more denies their request and makes it clear he expects the Marines to be aiding him, not the civilians. How will the Marines react to their requests being ignored? On the other side of the facility, Bob cuts a path through a group of Xenomorphs, bots and humans. He is surprised to see just how far the Xenomorph's nest is spread throughout the facility. He was fully aware just how deadly the Xenomorphs could be, but he had honestly expected more from the human defenders. To further complicate matters, according to Bob's old map, the fastest and most secure way to the ritual grounds was right behind this massive locked door. Using his Yautja wrist bracer, Bob is able to determine that the door is not opening because there is no power for it, the only place to redirect that being the central reactor room. It would appear that Bob is about to take to the battle for the reactor as well. The Fixer has finally had enough. The Xenomorphs are less than half an hour away from reaching the outer door to the reactor facility, and most of the Marines are still hunkered down in the habitation block, with the remaining 4 members of the teams that went into the tunnels having returned and linked up with them instead of the reactor. To make matters worse, the Xenomorphs are blocking the path back to the Fixer's ship. Infuriated, he confronts a single Marine team in the reactor and orders them to demand their colleagues come to his assistance. When the Marines pointed out the fact that would require abandoning the civilians, the Fixer made it clear that he did not care in the least, and if they did not come to his aid, when more teams from the company arrived, he would have them all killed. The Marines initially agreed, but at the first chance they got, they quickly abandoned the reactor to go to the habitation block. With no method of communication with the outside world, the Marines come up with a cunning plan to steal another ship, the one the Fixer came in. And so, the battle for the reactor begins. Hundreds of Xenomorphs charge across the walkways as what is left of the Fixer's team try and hold them at bay. Likely, they could have held the line for hours, possibly up to a day. However, there was something that they did not count on. Bob. The Yautja charges through one of the Xenomorph's advances and fights his way into the main reactor compound, using his stealth system to effortlessly move around. The Fixer didn't even have time to fully comprehend what had happened. Before he knew it, his security guards were eliminated and the Yautja was upon him. In the end, despite his high-paying position, the Fixer was only able to achieve next to nothing. With the power redirected, now it is time for Bob to make his way to fight the Queen and finally end this madness. Queen Barry is rejoicing over his ultimate victory. With the fall of the reactor, all that is left to stand against him is a handful of Marines and several dozen non-combatants, or as Barry prefers to think of them, future hosts. Barry's nest has grown so strong that it's begun to grow all over the facility, with an estimated 65% now being part of the nest. However, when the Xenomorphs attack the habitation block, they find nothing. Not a single human. You see, the Marines had abandoned the habitation block while the Xenomorphs were distracted with the reactor. They have a simple plan: to take the civilians, fight their way to the Fixer's ship, and hijack it for a ride off-world. After many hours of going through the tunnel, Bob finally arrives at the ancient ritual grounds. All that stands between him and slaying the Queen is a bridge guarded by Xenomorphs. On the end of the bridge are 2 Praetorians, the largest of the non-Queen Xenomorphs, who act as royal bodyguards. The battle is difficult and leaves Bob wounded, but eventually he manages to fight his way to come face to face with Barry. He is horrified by the desecration of his ritual site. Bob launched into combat without a second thought. Back above ground, the Marines finally fight their way to the ship and get the civilians on board. Getting there was tough, leaving them with only 9 Marines and 2 transports left. Aware from the Fixer that the company are sending even more teams, the Marines make a difficult choice. They allow the civilians to leave without them. Instead, 9 Marines will return to the facility and overload the reactor to take out the entire Xenomorph nest. Crashing their vehicles into the facility, the Marines battle their way through corridor after corridor. Meanwhile, down far below, the Predator Bob battles with Queen Barry the Xenomorph, but eventually Bob's technology and combat prowess allows him to overcome the Queen. The fight was tough though. leaving Bob extremely wounded and on the verge of death. Dozens of Xenomorphs charge across the bridge towards him, drawn by their mother's death. Deciding not to allow any further dishonor come to the ritual ground, Bob charges across the bridge and sets his respirator to detonate. He'll take the Xenomorphs and the bridge with him. Getting to the reactor room, the 3 remaining Marines waste no time sending the reactor critical, taking everything, including every Xenomorph with them. And so, it comes to the end. When the company purposefully let Barry escape, they had hoped it would teach them a valuable lesson about how Xenomorphs act and hunted in the wild. Admittedly, things had gone a bit out of control. However, the data was exactly what they needed. That in the bowels of the company's ship, the civilians used to flee is a single stowaway. Thank you for watching The Life of a Xenomorph.